Eric Dinallo joins us tonight from Washington, D.C. Eric, thank you for your time. How are you?
I'm fine. It's good to be here. Thank you.
So I was looking through your testimony, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to catch your testimony because I was tied up in the budget mess at the Capitol, so forgive me. But one of the things that I found fascinating is that you said specifically the crisis for AIG did not come from its state-regulated insurance companies, which is, of course, what you were responsible for as insurance superintendent, but later also said that state regulators did allow AIG to be too aggressive. So how do those two statements jive?
Well, I think that on certain pieces of the life insurance business, they put some more money into mortgage-backed securities than ultimately you would want. I think that's what the reference is. But across the board, AIG's insurance companies, as opposed to the federally regulated investment bank, did extremely well, were stable, solvent, and that's the part that we were responsible for at the New York State Insurance Department. That's the part that I went in and helped stabilize on behalf of millions of policyholders.
So you also, the reason that you were down in Washington to testify was in part because you believe, and I would assume that people in Washington believe, that there's something you could say to give a lesson from following New York's example in terms of regulating the financial industry so we don't see what happened to AIG happen again.
Yes, I was invited by the Financial Crisis Inquiry Commission to explain what I saw at AIG, what my views were about the regulatory system, and I think they were interested and accepting that New York State and the state insurance regulatory system, which the viewers are aware of and see come into their homes every day, that was well done, that was safe and secure. The federally regulated part of AIG, which was this highly leveraged, essentially loosely regulated hedge fund or investment bank without adequate capital, that's the part that did the damage. That is the part that caused the need for the Treasury and the Fed to come in and essentially bail out that part of AIG. But to a large extent, I'm actually very proud of the state regulatory system, and I think that that performed well for people across the board, although it required leadership at the New York State Insurance Department, and I'm the only candidate who sort of has faced off in these situations. And one reason I'm interested in the job of Attorney General, and as I was explaining to the panel, is it's really important that you have people who have been involved in the regulatory system, who have a certain amount of expertise that they can apply to these issues and make sure that the solutions that Washington is coming up with are protective of New York State citizens.
Well, to that end, and we'll get to the politics in a second because I'm sure we have a lot to say about the race, but before we get there, you know, there's this bill that's now moving through Congress. It was actually passed by the House, a financial regulatory bill. Is it going far enough in your opinion, and what advice have you given at the federal level that isn't appearing in that piece of legislation that's now moving through the Congress?
Yeah, I think some of it is very good. Some of it I am disappointed about. There is no solution to the too big to fail. I think we've permitted companies to become too big, too interconnected, and that they let themselves sell leveraged products off of the taxpayer base, whether that's bank deposits or insurance premiums. I wish they had sort of delved into that more and undone some of the damage they did when they reversed Glass-Steagall, which I think I've talked with you about before. And also, obviously, these things called derivatives have to be highly regulated. They were completely unregulated, and they led to the damage, I think, that you saw across the economic landscape, including AIG. And I wish that there was essentially a rule that if you're selling the equivalent of insurance, then you need to be basically licensed to sell insurance and have adequate capital behind that insurance. And they're still working that out. But that's the important part, is having people in government, state government also, who can oversee and look at these changes and make sure there are not places where state government has to step in to protect.
This isn't the first time that you have been testifying down on Capitol Hill. You also were there in 2008. And you had a little bit of a dust-up with Congressman Cummings from Maryland at that time. It seemed at the time that you were actually defending AIG executives. What happened there?
Well, I think there's a misunderstanding about that. I think if you see the whole testimony, the disagreement was, again, over the insurance side versus the investment banking side. My view was that the insurance side did fine and well, and that there was these offsites, which I said were too extravagant. I think I used the word profligate. But you need to still have, yeah, but you still need to have a training opportunity for compliance to make sure that the company officials know what the regulatorily correct business is. And those were the very same insurance companies that were selling products to the public, and you needed to keep that side healthy, and that's the side that is going to go to pay off the taxpayer. That's what that was about, is my recollection. I was not arguing with him so much as I was trying to draw the distinction between the insurance side and the investment banking side.
Yeah, I think the issue was, if I have it correct, was that they actually had a retreat, which you argued is a good thing to do, to get employees together to talk about problems in business, but that the retreat actually turned out to be sort of on the Tony side with spa treatments and golf outings, and that took place after the firm received federal bailout cash.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. But again, the federal bailout cash was, in my view, about the holding company and about this financial products division, this bolted-on investment bank. It was not really about the California insurance company that I think was at issue in that dialogue.
So now let's turn just to the AG's race. I mean, why the state insurance department, being the superintendent of the department, is a very highly specific thing. And you did actually spend time in Eliot Spitzer's office when he was going after Wall Street. And so obviously the Attorney General's office has a role in regulating Wall Street. But why does the experience of a superintendent in the insurance department translate then to be the Attorney General of the state of New York?
Well, I think there's a couple reasons. One is I have headed an agency of about the same size, so I have the managerial experience, the leadership background to go into the Attorney General's office, which is a large agency, and be able to take on those responsibilities and do it in a competent way. Insurance is a huge issue. I'm the only candidate who has stood up to large insurance companies, but also come up with creative solutions to really difficult problems that New Yorkers face. And a lot of those occurred at the insurance department, whether it was the settlement of the World Trade Center dispute, the expansion of health insurance to 400,000 more New Yorkers. I believe strongly that my experiences at the insurance department in state government as a public official, solving big problems, protecting consumers, is extremely relevant experience, and I'm the only candidate with that kind of experience.
You know, actually, the reform bill that's moving through Congress now aims to beef up enforcement at the federal level of the finance industry, and that's part of the reason why Eliot Spitzer, when you were working in the Spitzer AG office, he noticed that there was actually a lack of oversight, and he moved in with the Martin Act, which I believe you were responsible for bringing up to be used in this manner. Do you think that if finally they get it together and pass some kind of reform bill, that there will be less of a need for the Attorney General's office to have that kind of watchdog effect on Wall Street?